Drugs, powerful, controversial, and deeply woven into the fabric of human history. For thousands of years, they've shaped societies, economies, and even our understanding of the world. But how did ancient civilizations use these mind-altering substances? Were they just for fun, or did they serve a deeper purpose? Today, we're diving into the past to uncover the fascinating role of drugs in early civilizations. Buckle up, this is going to be a wild ride through time. Before we dive in, let's clear something up. When we hear the word drug today, it's loaded with baggage, legal battles, moral debates, and political controversy. Some substances are seen as life-saving medicines, while others are labeled dangerous or illegal. But strip all that away, and at its core, a drug is simply something that changes how we feel, think, or experience the world. And in the ancient world, these changes weren't just for fun, they were deeply important. Drugs weren't just medicine or tools for religious rituals or magic. These ideas weren't separate like they are today. Instead, they blended together, and mind-altering substances played a key role in all of them. Let's start with one of the earliest civilizations to use drugs in an organized way, Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, home to the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Here, drugs weren't just used, they were seen as sacred. Take Ninkasi, the Sumerian goddess of brewing. She wasn't just responsible for making beer, one of the most common intoxicating drinks in ancient times, but was also connected to healing. In one myth, she helps the drunken god Enki recover, showing that even back then, people understood that alcohol had both positive and negative effects. One of the first drugs ever recorded in history comes from this region, opium. By 3000 BCE, Sumerians in the city of Uruk were already growing the opium poppy, a plant that produces a powerful substance used for pain relief and pleasure. In their writings, they even described it with symbols that meant joy and pleasure, showing that they understood its effects. Another widely used drug was beer, but unlike today's beer, Sumerian beer was thick, unfiltered, and often drunk with straws. It wasn't just for getting drunk, it was used for medical purposes too. By 2200 BCE, doctors were prescribing beer, especially to nursing mothers, possibly to help with relaxation or increase milk production. This shows that drugs in Mesopotamia were not just about recreation, they were an important part of healing. But drugs weren't just used for medicine, they also had a place in mythology. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest known stories, tells of a mysterious plant of immortality. This fits into a common theme in ancient myths, the idea that special plants or substances had magical properties, offering wisdom, power, or even eternal life. It's a reminder that ancient people saw drugs not just as tools, but as something mystical, capable of changing reality itself. Even then, drugs faced challenges, such as adulteration. The earliest legal code in history, the Code of Hammurabi, written around 1750 BCE, included strict rules about alcohol. Tavern owners who watered down beer or cheated customers could be sentenced to death. But why was beer so important that it needed legal protection? Because taverns weren't just bars, they were centers of trade, social life, and even religious activity. Some were linked to the goddess Ishtar, and priestesses working in these places were involved in sacred rituals, including sacred prostitution. This means alcohol wasn't just a casual drink, it had a deep connection to society, religion, and even the economy. Mesopotamian doctors didn't just rely on alcohol and opium. They also used mandrake, hemp, and black hellebore, plants that could heal or harm depending on how they were prepared. But being a doctor in Mesopotamia was risky. If a physician claimed to be skilled but failed to heal a patient, or worse, caused their death, the punishment could be severe. According to Babylonian law, a doctor could have his hands cut off for making a fatal mistake. This shows how much trust people placed in medicine, but also how high the stakes were when using powerful drugs. Now, let's turn our attention to the Americas, where psychoactive substances were deeply embedded in religious and cultural practices. In pre-Columbian America, the consumption of psychoactive substances was closely tied to religious cults and rituals, where these substances were used to communicate with the divine. The region's rich flora particularly in the warmer climates, was home to many plants containing stimulants and alkaloids that had visionary effects, like Cohoba and Coca. These substances were not just for recreation, they were used in religious ceremonies to facilitate communication with the spirit world. In Central America, substances like Cohoba, derived from the Anadenanthera peregrina tree, were inhaled in powdered form during religious rituals. In South America, the coca leaf was chewed by indigenous peoples, often mixed with alkaline substances like lime to enhance its effects, demonstrating the intimate connection between drugs and work, culture, and even resistance, as seen when the coca leaf was later added to the coat of arms of Peru. The spiritual significance of these substances was so profound that early European missionaries, upon encountering them, often viewed the indigenous practices as devilish. This perception was part of a larger effort to suppress native customs and convert indigenous peoples to Christianity, eradicating their traditional spiritual practices and the psychoactive substances they used. In South Asia, the use of psychoactive substances, particularly Soma, also played a pivotal role in religious and cultural practices. Soma was a sacred intoxicant, revered for its ability to produce spiritual ecstasy and elevate the consciousness of those who consumed it, especially in rituals associated with the gods. Different hypotheses about Soma's identity have emerged over time, with theories ranging from it being a mushroom to a specific type of rhubarb or Paganum harmala. The sacred nature of Soma contrasted with the use of more widely consumed substances like cannabis, which, although linked to the god Shiva, only gained significant religious importance after the 10th century. The relationship between psychoactive substances and caste systems in India further exemplifies how intoxicants were intricately linked to social hierarchies. Different castes experienced different types of inebriation, and these practices influenced their worldview, especially their perceptions of life, death, and the cosmos. The concept of moksha, or liberation from the cycle of rebirth, emerged in response to intoxicant use, especially Soma, reflecting a puritanical view that avoided substances as part of a path to enlightenment. Ascetic groups, in particular, rejected all forms of intoxication, seeking enlightenment through abstinence and meditation. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Drugs in the ancient world weren't just about recreation or escape. They were deeply tied to medicine, religion, culture, and even the economy. They were tools for healing, gateways to the divine, and symbols of power. And while our modern views on drugs are often polarized, the ancient world reminds us that these substances have always been complex, multifaceted, and deeply human. Thanks for joining me on this journey through history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which ancient drug you find the most fascinating. Until next time, stay curious.